In this video, I'm going to be looking at Temu raised beds. Now, I needed a couple of small beds to fill in a couple of places in the pot, so I decided to get a couple of the Temu £20 beds. I've got two different varieties. One is the traditional sort of steel with the curved rounded edges, and then also a square one. So we're going to have a look at both of those. We're going to unbox them, put them together, fill them with some soil, and give us our verdict on each of them. So this is the first of the two beds. This one was, it's actually two raised beds, and I came in at, I think it was $34.95. This was actually shipped internally, so it only took about a week to arrive, which was quite good. So let's have an unbox and see what we've got. Right, so let's have a look. A bit of polystyrene packaging, give it that. So look, what have we got? Instructions, which essentially is just a simple set of instructions, which is essentially just bolt it together. And in here we've got a pair of cotton gloves included, which is a nice touch. Quite reasonable, nice cotton gloves. Yeah. All right, we won't be wearing those because makes them more fiddly. But cotton gloves are ideal for using sheet metal because instead of cutting through it, they scag on the cotton. So, a bit more cardboard packaging. We've got a little pack of nuts and bolts. And these are the corner pieces. It's all labelled up with little numbers, W1. Another set of corner pieces. I'm guessing this is the other two corner pieces for the other bed, so we'll put those to a side for one bit. And then in here we have 4 of these long panels. So let's put 2 of those aside. And 4 of these side panels. So let's get out of the way. So in terms of finish, they're quite nice. This is sort of the grey, it's all powder coated finish. The edges here are actually rolled over, so there's no sharp edges on the end. Obviously sharp edges on the side. That is quite a sharp edge there. But as I say, the top and bottom parts, not very sharp at all. And then our set of nuts and bolts. Let's get a little tray for those. So empty those out into there. Now they're quite small nuts and bolts. Before we do that, we're going to measure this stuff up. So we've got our calipers here. Just going to zero that. I'm just going to measure this metal, see how thick it is. So that says 0.33. Let's take it in a different area just to make sure. This is 0.46. Taking a few measurements. It's between 3.5 and 4 millimeters in thickness. And then these edge pieces, which are a lot thicker, those are 1 mil thick. So the edge panels, we'll just check one of these, just make sure it's the same, it should be. .34, so it's about 0.34 millimeters, we'll say 0.35 millimeters, we'll say. And then it should be just a case of getting these and bolting them together. Let's see how the screws align to the actual think that's pretty good. I mean, that's not far out. Now, the one disadvantage here is that they've provided you with these little nuts to put on there. You want to lose them in the bark chip-ins. Now they are quite small, but they're not actually giving you anything to actually tighten those up. And there's no little spanner in there. Luckily, I do have a spanner and a screwdriver. So these nuts that come on here require a 7mm spanner. So it's just a case of actually getting that down through there. It can be a little bit fiddly on this because they are very small, tiny nuts and screws. Right, so I'm going to crack on with this in the case of just putting the 4 corners on and then putting the sides on. And let's take a time check and we'll see how long that takes me to do. And there we have it. So it's taking me about 12 minutes to do. So let's have a quick look at it. Now it's constructed. It's a bit, so in terms of, it's a bit shaky in terms of this direction. It's pretty solid in terms of its collapse and if you're trying to push it out. As I say, this is thing, but when it's on the ground, hopefully when you've got it in there and there's some soil in it, it should be reasonably stable because pushing outwards it's fine. It's a bit wibbly wobbly that way, but it's not a bad job. We shall see later on the video. I'll be putting these in place and filling them up with soil, and at that point we'll really see whether the actual outward pressure of the soil sitting in there. So that is the first of these 2 beds. There's a little bit of twist and everything in it, but it should be good once we've got it down on the ground with some soil in it. Now this is our next candidate, which is the more traditional steel beds with the curves at the end. Now this one came in, I think it was about £21 or £21.50. It shipped all the way from China, so it took about 5 weeks to get here. You can track the actual shipping on their site, where it have left China, gone to Poland, come into the EU and everything else. So again, reasonably straightforward instructions, in other words bolted together, and a little checklist of here. So let's see what we've got in the box. So these are obviously 2 of the straight panels. Oh, a box of screws, and now these are slightly different. Into that. Now these are slightly different in that they're slightly bigger bolts. Instead of nuts, they've got wing nuts, which should hopefully make it a little bit easier to put together. They've also supplied a pair of cotton gloves. Let's have a look at those. Nice pair of cotton gloves again. I mean, they're cotton gloves, what can you say? They're quite nice though, quite nice gloves. Sure they'll be useful if you want to keep your hands safe. Then we've got a screwdriver included, which is nice. Then we've got the metal curved pieces. So 6 of those, 2 straight pieces, and then another 2 straight pieces. And again, it's just a case of lining these up. But before we do that, so it's some little bends and creases in these. Let's have a quick look at the thickness. They claim it's 0.5 millimeters. So let's have a quick look. 0.47, we'll give them that. Just take it in a different area. 0.48. One of the flat pieces. 0.45, so a little bit short of the 0.5 millimeters, but it's close enough that it doesn't matter. Now I can see that already that, as I say, they're quite bendy, flexy pieces, but hopefully when they're all bolted together, got a quite nice finish on them. They're sort of all finished off quite nice. A little bit of stickiness there where the tape was, but as you can see, look, it goes along wavy, and then at the end here it's slightly deformed, so I can see that we're going to have to perhaps give this a bit of a bending to make the holes lined up. Again, on this edge, which is the joining edge, it's not, I mean, it's not sharp, but you could, if you run your finger along it, perhaps cut yourself. On the top edge, again, it's rolled, so the actual top edge and bottom edges where the material's been put like that, and then it's been folded over on itself, so you've got a nice smooth edge at the top, so you're not going to cut yourself on that. So let's see how that goes together. So the other one took us 12 minutes to put together. This one, I don't know. So let's start the clock again. There we go, stop the clock. I'm going to say that's taken me nearly 20 minutes to do. There's a lot more bolts to put in, and you probably see if you watch it all the way through, sometimes there's a little bit of flexing that you need to do to actually get the holes to line up. I mean, it's not massively out, but you do need to do a little bit of flexing just to actually sometimes align those holes and just shape that metal up. It's very different from this one here. The other one, it's a sharp crease in the metal for these joins, which means these metals really not that bendy in terms of flexing out and back, whereas this is like a rolled metal, which means there's quite a lot of flex in the actual length of the holes, but they line up pretty well, and they've given you, what's that, about 4 extra nuts and bolts just in case you lose any. So let's have a quick look at it now it's constructed. So have a look. In terms of flex, it's not too bad actually. It's not flexible like the other one was. It's got any twist in it. Not really any twist in it. There's a little bit of coverage in there, but generally speaking, it's not too bad. This is more prone to actually flexing out like that. So we'll see how it looks when we get some soil in there, but you can see that that's quite a little bit of, you can see how that could quite easily bend out if you But hopefully if you get the soil, when you bend that out like that, it actually brings the bottom bits in and out. So hopefully the soil in the bottom would stabilise it. The other thing with this is that when it's constructed, these are the non-sharp edges, these are the sharp edges. These are still exposed on the edges. And you could still catch yourself, and then the joints don't always, because you're overlapping, the joints don't clearly, there's a gap there, you could catch yourself on those, I suppose. So let's put that one there. Let's go and get the other one back. As you can see, this one is, that's 120 by 60. This is 1 meter, so you're just missing this little curve bit at the end. But that's the two beds, if I put them side by side there. As I say, this one, you don't seem to get as much outward flex as you can get on this one. This is, although this is actually thicker metal than this, this seems, it's thinner metal, but it just seems less flexible and bendy. It seems like it's molded into that shape and it doesn't want to change, whereas this is quite bendy, flexy, even though it is slightly thicker metal. It's a softer metal than this, which is a little bit harder. I guess the powder coating on it helps. So that's two of the beds constructed. I'm going to go and construct the other two. I'll let you know how many nuts and bolts we had left over for this set when I constructed the second one. And then we're going to put them in place and we're going to fill them up and see how they cope with actually having soil inside them, because it's all very well having a bed, but if it flexes and bends when you put the soil in, the weight of the soil in there, it's no good at all. So I'm going to get the other beds finished, then we'll start filling them up. So we timed out yesterday, so we've come down today to actually fill the beds up. So these are our two beds that we put in and filled with compost. These are the rounded edge ones. Now they're still, if you look, although they've not deformed, they're still quite shaky. They're not deforming really, but I can see that they might over time. But they'll do the job. They'll do the job. And we've got those two in there. So let me take you over to the other two, which we put over here by the shed. And this is these two which we filled up. And again, a little bit of flex there, but there's nowhere near, because it's a straight panel, it's nowhere near as much flex in this as there is in the other one. And they're all standing up reasonably well. It's like, as I say, this just seems to be thicker, stiffer metal, and whether it's to do with the creases or not. So that's the two beds. As I say, these were about £17.50 each. The other two were about £20 each. So let's draw some conclusions. What would I say about that? Well, basically, I think if I was to buy them again, it's horses for courses, really. I would buy these ones because they're slightly more aesthetically pleasing, I think, than the round ones. But the other ones are just as well. They're a little bit bigger, but they will do the job. So it all depends on your personal preference. Both are a good option. But my preference would be for these ones because I don't know, they just look quite nice in comparison to these ones over here, which are a bit more industrial. But they're both reasonably good beds. So leave me comments down below, say which one you prefer, or if you've used them and had any problems with them. But that's our review of the two sets of beds. And I think for £20, it is a bit of a bargain, really. It cost you more than that in timber and wood to actually build one out of with a wood bed, and they're perfectly adequate and do the job